Good day, everyone. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Supply Chain Spot podcast. Today, we'll be going to another exciting and informative journey alongside two special guests. We have two eclectic gentlemen with us who are gracious enough to take time out of their busy schedules to be with us today. My good friend Ahmed AlBader is a well grounded technocrat with a stellar track record spanning over 20 years in a myriad number of areas, including tactical planning and extrapolation, project management, quality administration, business, investor relation, as well as government policy deliberations. He has been a symbolic and critical part of the optimization process for several partners and beneficiaries and remains steadfast in his commitment to remain pragmatic as a thought leader and industry shaper. Welcome to the podcast, Ahmed Al-Badr.
Thank you. Welcome.
We also have Professor Hani Ashkar with us, who has spent over 2 decades redefining what it means to be a solution provider. He has been able to provide timeless structures and keys that have intrinsically shaped niche sectors, including finance, logistics, education, supply chain management, procurement, and business strategy development. With an immense amount of insight into various sectors, Hani has been able to polish vital skills that make him outstanding in his line of work. He is the current director operations at Kaus and continues to optimize processes and strengthen initiatives that drive sustainable growth and efficiency. You're very welcome to the podcast, Professor Hani Ashkar.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and Hani would be sufficient.
It's great to have you both here today to talk about how the supply chain structure is innovating currently in Saudi Arabia. You both have unique insights into the world of business and various sectors that supply chain is pertinent. And I'm sure it's about to be a powerful and innovative episode for the listeners. So, once again, thanks for being there. I have known Ahmed for a better part of a decade now, and we've had a number of conversations that could be related to our understanding of the need to encourage diversity and inclusion in the marketplace. And considering the way the global economy is blooming because more and more people are connecting with each other, and business is becoming more accessible regardless of the geographical location. So, can we talk briefly about the globalization of business and the need for diversity in the business environment?
Well, thank you very much, Poonam. It's great to be with you in this podcast, and I really do welcome my friend Hani, who is a far better expert at logistics than I am. Um, the question you just posed is centered around the diversity of businesses and possibly connectivity. When we talk about logistics, we are definitely engaging the concept of bringing things together and kind of changing the unavailable to available. That's what logistics to me is. If you look at this concept, it has drastically changed the way we live today. Maybe at the first earliest, human kind of human changes to the logistics, where we started to ship things from food to medications to things that we have never had in an X region to a Y region. This what has caused the global community to kind of start the whole consumption and the whole economics have changed due to the logistics. So, in a nutshell, the producer, the demand supply formula globally has changed because of logistics and will continue to change because of logistics. Logistics in itself is how businesses grow, how we measure economy in one great area where we measure economy is by export, by ability to export, by ability to find markets. So that in terms of economic development and in terms of and in terms of a demand supply judgment or macroeconomy, the diversification that logistics has brought to the world is amazing, because today all goods and products produced anywhere in the world can compete to satisfy a certain set of customers somewhere around the other side of the planet. This has never been the case. It has never been as this simple, so that we can always order any good and tool or even service due to that. So obviously, logistics in the beginning was, more or less on transferring goods and products, and maybe produce from one continent to the other. Now, logistics has kind of drastically changed. So we have internal small mode logistics, which kind of change the transport of goods and services in the metropolitan areas. So people are talking about even drone delivery. And globally, we're talking about a huge multi-connected tri or even all kinds of model connectivity systems that have changed the way or the time it takes for a product to come from the manufacturer tens and 20,000 miles away to the consumer. So it has changed the way that consumer behavior is. It has changed the way that manufacturing is, and this is what in advanced economy we look at that. We look at an industry that is versatile. We look at an industry or a nation or an economy that can easily change its direction based on its logistics capacity, not because of not just not if you look at Saudi Arabia. I mean, we are probably one of the greatest nation when it comes to the agility of global economy of oil.
Right.
Our capacity to deliver oil and oil subproducts and petrochems to the world has been uncanny. We have the Aramcos and Sabic who plan the downstream service, the downstream products, and the upstream, which is oil and it's all of its subproducts globally. You can imagine how much plastics is floating around the universe. A huge part of it is coming from this region of the world. So without much said, this is, diversification in my mind is a logistical game. It's even on even our economy. If we think about it, when we want to diversify the economy of Saudi Arabia internally, we take each region that we have, the north, the south, the east, the west, and try to link them together so that there will be a logistical chain, a logistical value chain, and a closed and circular economy. This is the concept of circular economy we have now, is that one product, one output product of an area or a region or a factory becomes an input for another, and even a waste of a factory becomes an input for another. So we are living in an age where where logistics is the key. Actually, it's one of those services that is being people don't appreciate it, that it's so well done that is unappreciated. But today, half of the cost that you pay in your Amazon or whatever is actually related to logistics, approximately, give or take. Hani, what do
Absolutely.
you think?
Thank you, Ahmed. That's a wonderful perspective on it. Um, if you can see the development in Saudi Arabia, industrial supply chain logistics has always been through the bottleneck of logistics. As supply chain tries to grow and develop and be a bit more modernized and so forth, you find that it's always been tempered and controlled by the quality of the supply chain logistics, specifically part of the supply chain. The few niches of high top end manufacturing and production capacities in the kingdom had to define its own supply chain value in its entirety to maintain global competitiveness. Yet now, as the kingdom looking forward, we understand that upgrading and bringing to best practice the logistics capabilities in the kingdom will not only allow us to be a better supply chain manufacturing nation and economy, but we will be able to sell supply chain as a service on its own. And therefore, we look to become a global logistics hub. Our geographical location, our national capabilities allows us to do that, and therefore now, and we can talk about it a bit later. We are revamping our capabilities, our policies and procedures to enable that strength to be utilized not only for local use but for global utilization as well.
That's very insightful and that's very interesting. I mean, these policies are going to really build a better future in terms of supply chain. So, Ahmed, you also pointed out something about drones, and drones are attracting attention as a way to solve the world's logistics problem. Demonstration experiments have already been repeated at major e commerce companies such as Amazon, and the future of drones flying overhead of for product delivery should not be long. So legislation is being developed at a rapid pace in many countries to utilize drones for logistics. So what do you think the uses of drones in e-commerce logistics and its implication might have in the future, whether it is possible for such devices to ease the supply chain process?
Yes, I believe it won't be too long before the drones are a way to deliver most of the it just requires a little bit of regulatory process, and you know, it's like having a road network but without roads. It will be a little bit messy, but in a while, I think the metropolitan movement and transfer of goods will change to the capacity of for those small air vehicles that will not require a car with a V6 or a V8 cylinder to deliver a pizza for $20. That's just not economical at all. And if you have some other methods to deliver it, to deliver those products, the small products, the metropolitan movements to the inside, to the internal location inside the city and metropolitan limits. This will change a lot, and it will free a lot of capacity. It will free road capacity, it will free fuel capacity, it will free a lot of capacity. I think drones will be coming. It's just because of most of the problems are regulatory and security based. But once the I think the first starter will take the hit on themselves to start and kind of bang heads with the regulators until they reach a consensus. It will take off from then. And when you think about it, that's what happened to the Ubers of this world. It was a legal battle in the beginning, on the first few years. It was a legal battle, and the disturbance of the normal delivery, normal taxi structure, the disturbance of the revenue model, the taxation of Ubers and etc. Those solutions, they also need to be. And I kind of looked again in the drone delivery and the drone structure. Some countries now are thinking even of drones for mobility, and there is a personal drone for mobility that can take you at least, I think, 100 miles or so, or something like around that limit. So I think very soon technology will change the metropolitan logistics with air vehicles. It's just a matter of who comes in first, which billionaire will come in and kind of make a great company and start up somewhere in San Francisco as usual and hit the road with those delivery drones. I thought Amazon will be doing it, but I don't know how far are they up. But in some countries, emergency services like the ambulance is actually being sent, or medication in some countries are being sent, urgent medication, defibrillators for people who can use them, the ones where you need to shock the agents with a video that tells you how, because of it's only 8 minutes or 10 minutes. If you don't make it, then there is no point in sending an ambulance to pick up a body. You'd rather send them the defibrillator or the medication required. So a lot is happening on that front. Technology again is taking the logistics into another height of speed, accuracy, and even automation, because those drones very soon will not leave any place without reaching up to it.
Very rightly said. I
the,
mean,
the
with
last
all
the last mile delivery in logistics has been always
Challenge.
challenging, and that's where you get into urban, environmental, and other economical variables that comes into it. uh, Drone delivery is utilized today. The likes of medical supplies and medical requirement in Switzerland. There is a company operating there already, and it is, yes, a San Francisco, New York based, Boston based company. So you're not off, Ahmed, on that. And it's been under pilot and trials here in Saudi. GACA is very aware and been in discussion on how this regulatory framework happens, and what structures can be done. And we are looking to, again, on the globalization of business, how to adopt best practice in the world that fits our requirement, security needs, and so forth. But it's a matter of economics, and when it becomes appropriate to launch this. But it is already on the ground, and it's already operational, even in a smaller scale, some countries in the Middle East. However, the truly operational approach is to get the last mile delivery through uh, value add centers where multi businesses use the same delivery routes. And with that, you optimize the use of the vehicle and the road and so forth, and that drops the cost and drops the and improve customer satisfaction greatly. That part of optimization in the supply chain and logistics is still under its supposedly maturity in Saudi Arabia. That's where we're looking for new businesses to come in and evolve properly into that, because they are fighting the giants that already do this under their own umbrellas. So as the SMEs grow in the country, this type of service will have to come in and cover that need.
very, very rightly pointed out by Hani and Ahmed about the uses of drones. But I feel that's the future of drones is still absurd and controversial. It might take a few years, in my opinion, to gain the societal acceptance. Seeing thousands of flying objects all over the sky, many companies and experts, though, are feeling optimistic towards that technology.
the
Uh,
technology the technology is has been vetted, and it's strong, yet social acceptance has to come with time.
correct.
That's exactly what I meant when I said, it takes a big guy to come in and change and disturb everything. Obviously, all of these things have been tested, but and we know technology works. Technology has always kind of moved faster than human, either training capacity to adopt, or as Hani said, the social acceptance and other things as well. So it's a matter of a big guy coming in, just saying, that's it.
It needs to be seen operational and successful in certain pilots for people to accept it and move with it.
Correct. So I believe platforms that encourage global business should be encouraged because there's an increasing need of a talent in the world today. And most times, the special talent a process or an organization needs may be on other side of the world. And I believe connecting bright minds will go a long way to solve many of today's emerging global challenges. So, Hani, I have observed through your exemplary track record that you have special ability to rapidly grasp seemingly complex operations and somehow simplify them with easy to implement solutions. So, do you think there's any way that simplification can be applied to the ever cumbersome global economy? I mean, do you think it takes a collaborative efforts from the personnel involved globally, or the system itself is what needs work?
Um, Usually this type of collaborative work starts by the need of the business, which means the business see that there is an opportunity for efficiency, better customer satisfaction, or a better profitability, to be very frank at the end. However, that goes against and not all the time in support of what government regulations and policies are allowing for, and therefore that's the open channel of this discussion that is always open, and therefore can these items be put on the table and discussed. Ahmed just recently discussed Uber. That was a long discussion that went through many hoops and challenges to get solutions on the ground. Um, the utilization of talent across the world, now we can see after the pandemic that distance working and not being at site is not becoming an absolute mandatory for many of the jobs, where organizations like Google have came to the position that they're hiring talent from Eastern Europe or India and maintain them wherever they are and utilize their capabilities from their current locations. Not all the jobs will allow for that, but many creative jobs can allow for such thing. And that then we are really moving into a global economy where we're buying services, not only goods but services across the globe. Um, this will significantly improve a quality of offering of whatever product or service the organization is looking for. However, there is economical implications on that. So there will be, for each organization have to understand and accept how much of that they can utilize in their organization. Since 15, 20 years ago, local services here in Saudi, local businesses have utilized online support accounting and account payables and so forth overseas and offshore. So it's not a new thing, but how much of it can you bring into the business and especially into the creative part of it rather than the mundane administrative matter? That's one thing. The other thing is when you start looking at automation, AI, digitization, and use those talents and capacity around the world to improve your business wherever you are. And that really cuts a lot of the administrative requirement and improve customer satisfaction and service. Yet it needs to be done with a very good understanding of local need. When you buy offshore services and goods, that's always a concern that it's not fitting your local customer needs.
Thank you so much for that. So, strategic partnerships always optimize processes and makes every structure more efficient. So, when Saudi Arabia is concerned, what would you say are some of the ways global partnership have served in making the supply chain process what it is today in Saudi Arabia?
Ahmed, you want to
Hani.
take this?
No,
Or
this is yours. That's
this is mine.
definitely yours. Hani has
If you
been
look at the progression of
he's
supply
being very
chain,
humble. He's been instrumental in designing and actually signing some of these very lucrative and good deals when it comes to logistics with large companies and logistics.
thank
Go
you
ahead,
very
Hani.
much. Thank you very much. If you look at the incremental growth and development of total supply chain in Saudi Arabia, it started with pure retail wholesale. We had to buy goods and services. and offer them to the market. As we keep growing in our capacity in production, we had to grow our supply chain needs, because instead of buying one finished goods, you're buying hundreds of raw materials with all the capacity of production and capabilities. Now we have 30 plus, Ahmed knows better than I, in industrial cities around the kingdom. And that number is growing rapidly. Hence, all of the supply chain knowledge, capabilities, manufacturing knowledge, transportation, logistics, and so forth, had to grow with that significantly. And now we are not simple assembly lines, we have complex manufacturing capabilities across the board, from medicine to petrochemicals to heavy industry and so forth. That accumulated knowledge did not come out of a vacuum. It had to come with the right partnerships across the globe, from bringing in the best in class FMCG companies, or best in class oil and gas talented capabilities, or partnering up with even best in class defense industry. So those partners were the cornerstone for developing the entire industry and all of its sector. And and at the same time, Saudi Arabia worked diligently in developing its own knowledge and capabilities, own talent, through education, expertise, and so forth. So both tracks kept coming together and kept pushing the envelope forward.
That's very insightful. Thank you for that, Hani. Do you think modernization of the supply chain process is a result of utter necessity? Does the system just have to shift along with the global trends in order to maintain and even increase capacity and efficiency? So, when you consider Saudi Arabia's status and position in global economy, so would you say innovation is inevitable?
I
I
answered the last part. Innovation is already happening. So it's not inevitable. It's not something that we're waiting for. We are living it today. Every organization is finding its innovative solutions today and already applying it. So innovation is not inevitable. Innovation is on the ground, and it's been utilized on a day-to-day.
in another sense, actually, that you cannot, not be with along with the crowd. Logistics, the whole concept of logistics, in my own, very small kind of knowledge about logistics, is connectivity. So you cannot be connective to a world that you are not similar with. So if you do not have the same standard, the same procedure, the same, I mean, if you think about it from a different perspective, if you do not set up, if you do not design your planes as per the international standards, you cannot land in those planes. In airports, you cannot land at airports. There are airports which will not be enough for your plane to park or to fuel or to etc. or to etc. Then it will be on the wrong side. It will be on different side. It will be a longer runway or a shorter runway. So logistics, in a nutshell, is a connected business, like what will happen to the. I mean, in the way I see it, finance and logistics are very global matters. You cannot disconnect them. What happens in logistical problems somewhere across the globe affects the total momentum and the total movement of all the economy and other regions. And the test was the Suez Canal problem. When you That was the huge test. It was, a mini corona for the logistical world, I think. If the if the analogy is correct, it was a mini corona for the logistical world. Just one ship did closed one place, and everything went to a halt. So you cannot not just innovate, you cannot just stop, you have to keep
Very
running.
Thank you, Ahmed. That's a perfect analogy, actually. And when you say the word necessity in modernizing supply chain, necessity comes in different forms. But the vast majority of businesses see necessity from an opportunity or a threat they need to manage against. And most of them look for either a threat of cutting off their supply chain, i.e., the supply chain, the Suez Canal. So most top organizations have a backup line coming from the east. That's a known approach for many of the large organizations. SMEs might not be able to do that, but now they've learned that it's a very heavy risk to take. Your business will be paralyzed. Uh, Other necessity where you see opportunities. Now the pandemic has changed how people lived and their buying habits and their living habits. And for that, many organizations have realized this opportunity and adjusted. Many of We have here in our university programs related and supporting SMEs specifically. Many have moved from the traditional trade approach to online sites and markets and so forth. And instead of suffering through the pandemic, they actually flourished because they've grown their market from the one street or one district they're supporting to the entire kingdom. But supply chain support behind it, I can be available online, but how can I get the product to the customer is the hard question. And that's where the opportunity developed capabilities quickly. And in the past 2 years, the growth in employment of logistics, specifically for this need, has been significant to the point that it actually ate up and drove down unemployment rates in Saudi Arabia.
That's very rightly pointed out by Hani about how the pandemic has actually helped in taking or adding or redefining supply chain in a completely new perspective.
Yes.
So understanding challenges in a sector is one thing, being able to understand data that outlines the solution is another. So, Hani, please can you let us know in some of the ways industry decision makers can deploy best practice analysis techniques and how that can foster innovations and growth in their operations and company?
The vast majority of top and blue chip companies collate significant amount of data. And the best practice has been to utilize business intelligence to run through this data and big data mining and find correlations and make decisions for that. For example, a chemical company would uh, gather its 10 years of data on how they formulate their compounds and find best approaches to formulate new compounds going forward, i.e., the Dows and the SABICs of the world. Now, over and above that, instead of using BI, which is human intelligence, to do this analysis, since they have this significant amount of data and they have the practice of how to do this analysis, AI became the best tool. And for example, I was having a discussion with our colleague in Dow, where now most of the revision and development of new chemical compounds are done through AI in an artificial form, which expedites the decision making significantly, and therefore they can go to uh, practical trials in a much quicker approach, and therefore meet customer demands in a much quicker approach. That can be said to customer satisfaction, can be said to marketing approach. All of those data that the companies have been collecting, now they can apply these methods to it and generate better decision making going forward.
Very rightly pointed out. I mean, data has become an integral part of everybody, whether it's an organization, whether it's a government, whether it's an individual life. Even a lot of, I don't know, if you have looked at the pattern of buying at Amazon, they post certain products and commodities based on the preferences of the data or the purchasing pattern habits. And that has really made us more and more getting attracted towards these e-commerce platforms as a such.
Many
uh,
government sectors are now looking to develop these algorithms to understand where investment should go, which sector, because they are looking at short-term, long-term returns on investment, and each sector has its own return on investment rates and timelines, and to generate the expected and aspirational growth we have in our economy, best investment decisions. So even in investment decision, AI is coming into the play to because it can look at historical result data and bring better decisions going forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. A lot of banks, as well as even the hedge fund investors, they use this data to understand whether to uh, invest in a particular company for their supply chain or not.
Absolutely.
What's
So,
happening right now?
innovation is slow. Ahmed,
Yeah.
do you think bureaucracy is still the most efficient structure for today's ever so dynamic market?
Well, no, I think democracy is the best way. Well, when it you definitely one needs to think about right now. There are like 6 areas or 5 areas where democracy of the quality of data has to emerge as a new way of innovation, because you cannot build augmented and aggregated knowledge and feed that to an AI machine to munch it, so that you can have the amount of intelligent integration and amount of of automation, and the amount logistics as a whole comes in as a uh, you know um, a behavior of a network. Logistics, in the way I see it, from a non-expert point of view, it's a network behavior of different, very different systems trying to achieve the same things, which is basically moving an A from B. But an airplane is different than a car, different than a train, different than a truck, different than a ship, different than a container, different than a bulk container, whatever. So you have to have a huge amount of data, and then that is obviously democratized data, that is free data, so that you can feed this data into very super great machines that understands the weather, understand the seasonal problems, seasonal patterns of traffic, maritime movement. Even now they're thinking about having models that look at the geopolitical problems, and add that as a complexity factor into the logistical AI machines. So when it comes to AI, this is an area I'm very familiar with, and I'm very sure that logistics is benefiting already and will benefit much further once the data lakes of those huge, huge logistical companies are being democratized and allowed for people. And I know your business is one of those businesses that utilizes the data of logistics to build value, an amazing value, and there is a lot of untapped potential when it comes to democratized data, when people understand what comes into a country and what leaves a country at what time of the year, when, where, and how, and what value. I mean, we've done a small model on healthcare, and the result was amazing. We started to understand the type of shipments, the type of medications, the type that comes into different ports, the type of time it takes, the time of problems that it takes, in the border. And then when we talk about, for example, the temperature sensitive shipments, this is a huge problem in the logistics, a huge problem. We have people that suffer from bad diabetic insulin. That's just because of a small glitch in this huge transport from Denmark all the way to Saudi Arabia. When one guy just doesn't do their job, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of patients could be having a bad insulin or could have even further health complications. So in my opinion, the employment of artificial intelligence into munching a lot of democratized data by nationwide and by policymakers, by anybody, is a benefit for all. The problem is it comes when you cannot quantify which data you should democratize and which data you shouldn't. People see this as a competitive matter because then you know how much I import from this and you know how much I import from that, and the bilateral relationship starts to between many countries. People start to understand that they depend on this country. The trade balance becomes exposed. There is a lot of sideways that this conversation could go, but it will happen, and I think very soon, even when you introduce the blockchain and the electronic payments, these things will start to build a world of its own. You cannot let it go. It will be published, it will be out.
Very rightly pointed out. I mean, that's very insightful. So, risks are inevitable in complex supply chain networks. And that is something every industry faces as they cannot fully control the outcome of environment and global incidences. So I'd love to hear from both of you how the relevant Saudi Arabian trade authorities been able to mitigate risks when dealing with third parties, suppliers, distributors, brokers, and logistics service providers. Do you think enough is being done to mitigate the risk of supply chain bottlenecks? We'll start with Hani.
I think from a governance perspective and policy perspective, Saudi Arabia has developed its policies and procedure and governance to allow sufficient business decisions area for each business to manage its own risk appropriately. The legislative support is there. So it becomes then each business owner to make the appropriate decisions that fits their requirement and their businesses. When you talk about pharmaceutical goods and a cold supply chain, the slightest variance can ruin entire businesses, and more importantly, many awaiting customers are affected significantly, and therefore the risk mitigation has to be much more robust against that versus buying steel, which is not harder in the supply chain, but due to global requirement, it's a harder commodity to acquire and costly to move. So the risk factor there is not the movement of the goods; it's the sourcing of the goods, and therefore the country kept high level of regulations against exporting, because that puts the country in exposure against availability of sufficient steel for our development requirement. So I think it's a very situational matter. Each sector, each business owner, and the government bodies that are related to it are putting sufficient regulatory and business decisions to make that sector resolute against risks. Now, with that being said, there are things that you never be able to foresee, but if you have the right environment, you can react to it. The pandemic is a very good example. Nobody could foresee something that can go for 2 years, but I believe the reaction of the business world was positive. We at the beginning were hit as a challenge, but then turned it around and made it an opportunity that grew a lot of businesses as well.
Thank you for that. Ahmed, what are your thoughts on the same?
Well, from an economic point or standpoint, and from a industry and trade, I think this is where the negative matter of being heavily dependent on goods and services flowing into Saudi comes as a positive side. We are very, very attuned. Our logistical structure is very attuned to import, and we have seen, we have been importing goods and services for a long time, and still is. This comes with huge efforts to localize our product and services. However, there is still a huge amount of goods and services being imported into the country, which means that we have a very, very solid knowledge when it comes to shipping things in and shipping things out. We have very busy ports, we have very busy airports, and we have very busy customs. And our custom agency is growing and growing. The we are a very different country than those who produce locally and consume locally. So this gives us huge strength outside in terms of building the right resilience at our logistical system. We've been through global war, local wars, and still we have not been having any. I mean, you I don't know if you remember, but Hani, I'm sure Hani does. The Gulf War and all of these problems we had in the region, with all the restrictions, with all the problems, we have never had, and this is what people do not understand. We are still also on a war on the south border of Saudi Arabia, and we still have every good and service reach Saudi Arabia on time on different sides of the sea, like the Red Sea and the Arabian Gulf. We still have no issues. We're delivering our goods and services. Our maritime traffic is brilliant. We really do have a very resilient logistics,
and and air. So
and obviously
all
area.
all means are open.
So we are very attuned to bringing things in and out. Saudi Arabia is a very big hub, so that's why our logistics has to actually grow. And in the most recent advancement into the public sector, the Ministry of Transport has adopted logistics as a key issue to become the Ministry of Transport and Logistics.
Correct.
So they are very, very keen and we have also a national program as well, to mention that as well, which is called NIDLib, and it's focused on logistics. I remember in the past when we did when I after just about the time when me and Hani were working together, the design of Sider Industrial City in Riyadh, where we have made sure that the rail network passes through and becomes an offloading and onloading to the north and down back to the Riyadh from the industrial city. We were hoping for at least dual mode transport logistics, if that's the right word, yeah, Hani, صح? I believe so. So we were hoping that there will be a trucking network and a train network moving in the industrial city and creating all kind of activity. So I think Saudi Arabia is very lucky to know how to manage its import and export and logistical network, in all modes, in all actual modes, whether it's maritime or air or trucking.
I mean, that's very insightful, Ahmed. I mean, having these minute level of information is really very difficult. I mean, if I am looking at Saudi Arabia, we actually go through all the information that's available on the net. But these minute level of information, that how it has been a challenging position and how Saudi has been adopting a lot of measures towards creating a balance in the state, in the country, it's really great to know about that. So I appreciate you both so far. We have tackled real issues and concerns, and we've been able to discuss Saudi Arabian supply chain structure at length.
Let, let
Ahmed,
me let me add on one thing, Punam, to the last statement. Hani knows very well, and you probably that the Saudi logistics is still has a long way to go, a huge long way to go, and this is due to the fact of some considerations or some privacy or private matters to Saudi Arabia, that we do, check every good and say every good that comes to Saudi Arabia for a lot of things. So for the source of the goods, for the nature of the goods. So our borders not only are being, our goods and services are not just moving, we're moving them safely. So we know the exact, contents, and we actually search for, as you know, all the, restricted goods, and even the stuff that's not being allowed to come into the borders. So we do have a lot of restrictions, and there will be another stage where these restrictions will change, or at least dramatize, get changed into a model where there is a faster checking or a huge checking. Then the logistics world will even improve. I see a huge room for improvement. We're still in the beginning.
Absolutely. So, Ahmed, what do you think is a major milestone that Saudi have made regarding the bid to make their supply and trade structure more responsive and efficient?
This one, Hani should take first.
Uh, the two or three major initiatives Saudi is working on as we speak. The first one is to make the railway system more complete across the kingdom, and that means goods can move east to west, north south very freely. Uh, Secondly, enable better and stronger shipping lines and ports to receive the needed goods straight to our ports instead of coming through uh, other neighboring countries. Uh, in logistics and supply chain in general, the rule is known. The least number of touches gives you the best efficiency and service offering. So the more efficient capacities that you have in major infrastructure such as ports, custom clearance, and railway will enable this internal use and consumption of goods and services. Furthermore, changing and bringing new regulatory structures that allow for potentially free zones, trade zones, and so forth, enable the country to use this uh, excellent location and newly developed infrastructure to not only consume the services internally for our use in goods and services, but able to be the hub for a regional global logistics services as a logistics hub. So if we look at it, Saudi Arabia to the Middle East is no more than a 3 hour flight or a few hours by maritime and so forth. And it is the largest economy, the largest consuming body out of the Arabian Peninsula. Saudi Arabia is 50% of the consuming capacity. Hence, it is the right structure for us. So all of the development that is happening today enable this development both in logistics and as a repercussion supply chain and manufacturing because you are in a better position to deliver that.
Thanks for
Um,
that.
I think also taking it from where Hani has kind of stopped is the in my dream, and at least in my own again my own little economic dream is to have those export processing zone, or the EPZs. It was a dream that we've worked on on it together, and with enough success, we're hoping that in the next few years there will be more focus on building proper industrial or semi-industrial, semi-export processing zone, where you have a lot of economic activity and then a huge import and an export right away. So this way you will enhance your ability to export, and you enhance your ability to employ, and you also the knowledge capacity of the population in terms of processing goods in Saudi Arabia becomes bigger, and then slowly it becomes manufacturing and assembly and manufacturing, and we move on forward for a better industrial output, which will then obviously bring the logistics. Now, I'll draw your attention to one example we had in the past, like the automotive industry. We
Mhm.
have had we have had a good run in on with the automotive industry, and I've been a part of the industrial clusters program in Saudi Arabia for a while. The automotive industry works on a huge concept of having all goods flowing into one place in the right time, flowing sometimes even to the assembly line, and building that car as it goes, as it goes throughout the assembly line. Some of the best examples are the Mini Cooper factory in the UK or others, where you have those all goods and service, sorry, all goods come in different stages of the assembly line, and in the end they just are fused in together to make this wonderful car or wonderful product. So I think very soon we will have the will of building much better export processing zone, and processing zone that support the industrial zone downside, and the industrial downside, which is basically exporting the product, because we do have a transitional stage for all the products in Saudi Arabia, which is basically products prepared for export. There is a small problem in creating that export ready product for the manufacturing side. We do have one line that makes this. They need to make it ready for export. They need to make it ready for maritime export, or for air export. It's quite different. And also some goods, some businesses are in the region depend on bringing one or two or three things together, and processing it and making a small another final end product. That's also a dream of building an export processing zone, and it's very possible because the lucky enough, most of the ports that we have and airports in Saudi Arabia are surrounded by huge spaces, and it's governmental. So just wait and see. Very soon, these things will come in and become export processing areas where we will make huge advancement in the global economy.
One more item which seems directly related, but I see it extremely directly related, is the recent decision from Saudi Arabia, Ministry of Education, and to allow for external universities and education institution to open in Saudi. Uh, to me, the driving force for any industry and supply chain, for sure, is within it, is the talent and manpower capabilities. And with having the right knowledge base, right education on all levels, and I'm not talking university level, but also vocational level and so forth, will ensure that we can, as an industry and as a nation, deliver this and become a true attractive location for companies to come in. Um, and it's already working. We can see in the past 3 years the massive jumps in the FDI that the kingdom is bringing in, which on its own is a proof that it is an attractive business hub, and supply chain is for sure part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, yes. So when you rightly pointed out, now universities have coming out of their base locations and having set up educational institutions in a lot of countries, so that a lot of brain drain can happen. A lot of people can get well educated, and they have the skills that they require to perform it in the best possible way.
and
Thank you
and
so
that always drive the other local universities to upgrade their offering
And innovate.
to
Yes.
compete.
Yeah.
That simple decision, even though no university has actually showed up yet, the discussions are open all over the place and plans are
much.
already made. But you can see all the universities in the kingdom have already started upgrading their offering to catch up with market needs. business needs.
Hani, I think you brought on a very important subject as well. The recent decisions, the recent decisions have also have made a huge a huge push for multinationals that work from anywhere in the world with Saudi Arabia, not to operate remotely, but to come to Saudi Arabia and operate from within Saudi Arabia. So you have people moving in, then you have more consumption, you have more real estate requirement, you have more product and services required. The growth plans for huge areas of Saudi Arabia we have development, royal commissions for the development of soda, of asir, of ula, of so we're building new, just almost new cities in across Saudi Arabia, and those will require goods and services, will require multinational companies to come in and also generate economic activity, also bring in new people, bring in new talents, and just mobilize the economy more further.
I mean, that's the answer to my next question, but I would still like to put this up. So before we wrap up, I have the last question for both of you to take a shot at. So earlier we spoke about the need for the right talents and how the world needs to be more inclusive. For the sake of business owners listening, what would be your suggestions about the best approach to building a converging global team? So, with the growing need for expedient and trustworthy partners, how can a startup retain talent and inspire them to keep doing their best?
I, I've had this discussion with various business owners and consultants and HR specialists and so forth. And the so simple and vague answer is the business owners needs to make what uh, decisions that suits them best, where they can outsource talent and bring it to their business from anywhere in the world, and as we talked about earlier, but still maintain connectivity with their local market and needs. So, where to define that fine line is still under test in many organizations. I've seen organizations here in the region, not in Saudi, but in the region, that gave what equates to 6 to 9 months working from abroad. Uh, uh, does that work for them? They will test it. In my current organization, we've put a pilot program for the year and see the results of that coming up because it's a new approach and it's not there is no predefined understanding and results that we can draw from, an experience that we can draw from. So the best answer I can give right now to startups is make the best decision, try it on for a while, try to bring in the scarce talent that you cannot find locally by other means to strengthen your organization. But and diversity always brings strength to the organization. Yet be aware that people look at your business as a local business, and they have those expectations from the local business.
Thank you, Annie. So let me just go back to your question. So your question is how the startups can actually retain their talent in this business. Am I right?
Yes. So, how can startups think of coming in Saudi Arabia and they can retain their talent by operating, globally? And what are the instincts they would have when they're planning to come down to Saudi Arabia?
Well, and then we have two questions. What do you need to operate in Saudi, and how can you retain your best talents? And I think they're related to us. They're not very related, but they're very related to the people outside, because they think that once you move to Saudi Arabia, you lose your talent. That's the caveat, Hani, which which we, which I've just discovered. Well, I think. I remember back 20 years ago, and that's when me and Hani started working in Unilever. We were operating out of Dubai, and our company decided that the market is in Saudi Arabia. So they just moved everybody from Dubai to Jeddah, and we started operating. We enlarged our factories, and today we're still one of the most successful, FMCG companies in the region, and one of the most profitable, as I hear, because I've left. So it all comes down to the fact that if you have a good vision and an appreciation for the Saudi business and the Saudi economy, you will make the right move. And when it comes to the social issues, I think you and I probably are witness to the largest social transformation ever done to a society. I bet there has never been any social change done over 6 or 7 years of this massiveness. From two examples, which I don't want to mention now, but I'm sure if you just look up the newspapers, you will see where we have moving. So talents that sees Saudi Arabia as, people see Saudi Arabia now as a hub, as Hani said, for a multitude of things, for one state of the art projects, unique projects like Neom, the line, the projects, the hectagon. So there are projects that are one of a kind. People would love to have them in their CVs. Actually, Hani is working on one of them. Kaust is one of the major, one of the state of the art universities globally, and it's something to be proud of to have in our country. So I think people need to understand that Saudi Arabia is an attractive country, as opposed to the all the negative vibes you see and hear. We are way further, and the ship is actually have sailed long ways, and the economy has been getting better, leadership, politics, social, everything. And just take a look at our FDI, as Hani said. That's just one of your biggest indicators. Our FDI, our DDI, our policy changes, our social changes, everything is moving in the right direction. We are grabbing global attention, leadership, policy, investment in all sense and fronts. So if we talk about people, how, and that's answering the first part of your question. The second part is how to attract talent. I think if you, as a major investor, wants to join in Saudi Arabia, and you will be faced by those fears, and I don't want to go there, I don't want to, I don't want to go to Saudi Arabia, it's this or that. The best thing is to come in for a visit, or to look at things. I mean, we have huge, amazing activities running out throughout the year. That's one. The second thing, if you have that challenge, I believe I was an entrepreneur myself, and I also kind of dissipated some problems that I had with alignment of interests. So if I align my interest with my team by having an equity, or by having an equity at the new firm, or having by a small form of an incentive, this is the way that entrepreneurs keep their good talents, regardless of where they're moving, whether they're moving to Saudi or they're being snatched by some other bigger company. So you will always have that risk of losing your good talent. You need to keep them motivated. You need to keep their interest aligned to your interest by having a good incentive scheme, equity shareholding scheme, bonus schemes, all of those tricks that you do in normal world, regardless of whether you're mobilizing your business to a country or to another place. And I gave you an example where we have moved a huge number of employees and a huge number of infrastructure from the UAE to Jeddah, and that was 20 years ago, before any of this was possible. So I believe we're a great place for business. People should see that, and if they don't, they should just take another look, and maybe come in for a visit, and see what happens.
As a
Absolutely.
simple example of the globalization and talent capacity um, Saudi Arabia can offer, KAUST, where I am working right now, we proudly say that we have more than 110 nationalities on campus, living and working. So we are just a few countries short of the United Nations. And this is going from Korea all the way to Chile, from Norway all the way down to South Africa. The globe is covered, and we are a university, so there is no challenge to bring talent to Saudi Arabia. Absolutely. The only question I raise to the business owners, if you rely too much on external talent and not understand that there is a local understanding and local capabilities that has to be taken in consideration.
That's very informative. I mean, it's correctly said that, when we actually go in as a company, we have to break down all the other uh, disturbances that we have, and we just still need to focus on making life easier of the people with our business. And that's the motto that we with which we need to enter into any market. And Saudi Arabia has been proving itself and actually proved that it's a best country right now to talk about supply chain logistics and everything. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Hani and Ahmed, for willfully sharing wonderful and very potent information with us. I really appreciate you both, and hopefully, this won't be the last time we do this. And we're going to have you back on a show with another topic, talking about supply chain and discussing more on how supply chain is actually innovating or adding colors to the community as a whole. Continue listening to the podcast and keep following us through the month. We have one kind of a supply chain spot customized mug that a lucky listener will get to win. So stay tuned. Also, we have many more industry experts and leaders lined up to share the insights on various topics. So don't miss out. You can keep catching our episodes on Spotify, Wink, iTunes, Google Podcast, Alexa, Ola Play, and Geo7. Till the next episode, take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Panam. Thank you, Hani, and see you soon.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much. See you soon. Take care.